Hello everyone, my name is Cliff and welcome back to my channel. And welcome if you're new here. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's a bit of a passion project. I've been meaning to start it last year, and I want to count down my 100 favorite books of all time. And in different series, so this is going to be part 1. From 100 to 91. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow night, 4 o'clock South African time, remember we're about 7 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing another horror live chat, and this time it's going to be with Matt from Bask in the Story, the channel Bask in the Story. And he loves classics and he's very eclectic in terms of his reading, and we're going to be looking at not just horror, but we're going to be looking at horror classics and where did horror come from, where did it start. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun, and I encourage you to join us. I encourage you to comment in the video, just be part of the conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, as I've said, this is a passion project. This is something I've been meaning to do for a long time, and initially I saw a similar series of videos by Pick Your Pop Culture Poison, which I'll link down below. And I said at the time, yeah, I really want to do that. And that was earlier last year. And then the other night I watched Big L from Big L does Booktube, and he did his top 100 books of all time. I am going to do mine in a series, but I was watching that. It was an excellent video. I'm going to link him below as well. And I was thinking, right, I need to do this. And what I'm going to do is, because normally I don't film on Saturdays or Mondays, certain days I don't film, I'm going to fill in that extra slot where I do this. And it's going to be 10 episodes once a week, where I'm going to be counting down 100 to 91, 90 to 81, etc. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. It's obviously going to be a lot of horror content. I've actually counted as probably about half, maybe more, because I mainly read horror. But when I was younger I used to read fantasy, classics, literature, adventure stories, all sorts of stuff. So you can expect a little bit of everything in here. Okay, let's start with the list. And for number 100, I decided to do something completely different, unexpected, a surprise. Oh sorry, let me just go through some rules. First of all, and this makes it kind of tricky, only 2 authors in the list are allowed. So in other words, only 2 books per author are allowed. So someone like Stephen King, I can only choose 2 books from him, which makes things very interesting. In addition to that, no short stories at all. And yeah, I've decided for 100 I'm going to do something completely different and unexpected. And I'm going to choose a South African play from a very South African playwright, a very famous, world-renowned South African playwright, and that is Athol Fugard. And this play is probably his most popular, and it's called Master Harold and the Boys. Now what this is about is an interesting thing that takes place in Port Elizabeth, where I grew up. That's where he filmed a lot of the stuff during apartheid. Got in a lot of trouble with the government, because his plays talk about racial inequality and racial injustice, and he brings that to the light. And what happens in this particular play is it's about a boy, Master Harold, and the 2 boys are the 2 grown men, the black men that he's befriended that are servants in the house, and he's basically talking to them, awaiting the return of his alcoholic, incredibly racist, abusive father, who's about to come home. Now, that's a very powerful little play, more powerful because it's just in one setting, in this tea room in Port Elizabeth, and it's all about the dialogue and it's all about relationships and the relationship breakdown that takes place, and is kind of, you think about the society that these people are living in during apartheid, and it's just the bigger scope and then the smaller scope, and it's very, very interesting, and I highly recommend you pick him up. Doesn't have to be this play, but yeah, he really kind of put a spotlight on apartheid and on the government at the time and the inequalities of apartheid. Okay, for 99 we got The Hound of the Baskervilles from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now I've got that in this particular volume. Recently I read the first one, but I have read, the only other book that I've read by him is, the only other Sherlock Holmes and Watson book that I've read by him is The Hound of the Baskervilles. And I read that when I was a teenager, quite a long time ago, and I remember loving it. And what's completely unique about this particular book is that it takes place in a very gothic setting, which is unlike a lot of his other mystery adventures, mystery stories. So it's very spooky and it's very gothic, and it's got this apparently terrifying supernatural beast that is haunting the wilderness, haunting the moors. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I need to reread it because it's not that fresh in my memory. Yeah, but that's Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Hound of the Baskervilles. Okay, next up in 97th position, we got a new to me horror author, Keelan Patrick Burke, and we got a story called Blanky. Now this blew me away. The fact that it's 97 just shows you the quality that's going to come still. But it's about this man who's lost his infant daughter. She died of a cot death, and since then his wife has left him. He's struggling to cope, he's drinking heavily to try and cope. And yeah, he just can't cope, he can't pull himself together. And then one night he has a sound coming from her room. Now her room, talking about the infant daughter, has obviously been stripped of everything. But what he finds there is her blanket, her security blanket, which they used to call Blanky. Now, this wouldn't mean much, but the problem is that she was buried with this security blanket, Blanky. And it makes a reappearance. The story is weird, it's dark, and it's balls to the wall horror. It gets very dark. And yeah, if you're a horror fan, pick this up. It's only a novella, but it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for this guy. And it goes to very strange and weird places. And yeah, just make no mistake, yeah, it's very, very good. A sort of a devastating ending, but an excellent novel. And that is Blanky by Keelan Patrick Burke. In 96th position we got The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood. Now this is a classic horror novel. It's actually also a novella, and also only recently discovered this author last year. And it's just phenomenal writing, so atmospheric, so creepy. And this is about 4 men, 2 of them are servants, and they're out hunting moose in the wilderness, in the woodlands. And they basically feel that they are being tracked by this mythical monster, this mythical creature called the Wendigo. Now there is a sense of kind of tension and paranoia amongst the group. There's no blood and guts in this book or any of the books by this author, and it just shows you can have a really good scare without being gratuitous. There's just serious build-up of tension and kind of not quite knowing what is happening. And I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I highly recommend this author. And there will be another one of his later on in my top 100, and that is The Wendigo from Algernon Blackwood. Okay, 96th position we have Grimm's Fairy Tales. Now make no mistake, these original tales from the Brothers Grimm, this is not Disney stuff at all. These tales right at the beginning, before they were kind of changed anyway, there was sexual innuendo, and sometimes a little bit more than that. There was violence, there were kind of beheadings, there was all sorts of very nasty stuff going on. And I'll give you an example. In the story Cinderella, in the original, the ugly sisters, when they find that little silver thing, that shoe that they want to fit their feet into, in order to try to make their feet fit, excuse me, they cut off their toes and they cut off their heels so that their foot can slide in more easily. So that's just one of many, many messed up things you're going to find in these stories. And I've got a book here that's like a retelling of these stories, fairy tales, stories that are grim and gruesome. And it's retold. It's a whole lot of the stories retold by a lot of horror authors and some fantasy authors. For example, we've got Ramsey Campbell. We've got Neil Gaiman. Let's just look. John Lindquist. Okay, let the right one in. That one. Tanith Lee. Brian Lumley from Necroscope. And lots of others. And so they take some of these story tales. This is not for children, and they just make them more than deliciously dark. Kind of got some serious horror going on here. So that is Grimm's Fairy Tales, part of my childhood. Okay, in '95 we got one of the sort of a handful, or even less than that, of a few action adventures that I devoured as a child and I absolutely loved. And we're going for Where Eagles Dare by Alistair MacLean, an author that as I said, I absolutely devoured. There's no point really going into the plot with these books. They are spy adventures, many of them set in World War II, and kind of flying behind enemy lines, beautiful women, crazy soldiers, Nazis, and just a hell of a lot of fun. And yeah, just page-turning action adventure. So yeah, I used to love these as a kid, so unapologetically I'm going to put one or two of these into my top 100, that's for sure. So that is Where Eagles Dare by Alistair MacLean. Okay, 94th position, let me get that right here. Yeah, 94th position, we got The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Now this is a book I haven't been able to shake. I think I gave it 4 stars. A lot of these books in the top, well, in the bottom 20, 30 or 4 stars. I kind of mixed the 4s and 5s together. I had a real critical look at what I wanted to use. But this book is so dark, it's bleak, it's harrowing, and it's utterly depressing, save for the fact that it's got a father and son, and the love between a father and son. So there's this kind of optimism, and the story of survival as they try to cross America, and they've only got each other. And the whole way through as you're reading it, you feel like you're turning on a lighter, and it's flickering. It's just one little light in the darkness, and at any moment the light could go out. And yeah, it's a tenuous optimism. It's just, yeah, keeping a light shining. But it's a very powerful story. It's a very moving story, and how they rely on each other to get through things. And it's a beautiful story, and I highly recommend it. Although it's not an easy read, for a lot of people that don't enjoy this book, it's just too bleak. And also the prose is kind of very sparse, which kind of fits into the setting. But I really enjoyed it, and once you can make your way through it, I absolutely love this book. So that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Okay, 93rd position, we have a very interesting novel that I reviewed last year as part of a dark non-horror gem. And that is The Diving Bell and the Butterfly by Jean-Dominique Bauby. And it's basically about this Frenchman, I think he's an editor of some French magazine, he's quite wealthy, who suddenly suffers a terrifying stroke. And he wakes up with basically this thing called locked-in syndrome, where he is paralyzed completely from head to toe, but his mind is absolutely intact, perfectly intact. He can't move a thing, except for his blinking his left eyelid. And so what follows is that he tells the story of his life by doing exactly that. Using blinking his left eyelid, comes up with code, and it's kind of very powerful, it's haunting. Just the idea of being locked in your body, it's very moving. But yeah, So at once it's terrifying as hell, but on the other side it's also kind of an affirmation of life and just never giving up. So in that way it's a beautiful novel as well. So yeah, I highly recommend it. The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Okay, 92nd position, we got another unusual one, but it resonated with me as a teenager and I absolutely adored, and that is First Blood by David Morrell. Yeah, you heard me right, the story of Rambo. But the book is just so much deeper than the movie, and it's a story about a Vietnam war vet, and he's minding his own business, going into this small town, and he kind of butts heads with this small town cop who treats them, I suppose you could say, unfairly, and from then on it's like a kind of battle of survival. And yeah, it's basically don't mess with me, don't mess, it's just he feels like he's been unjustly treated. And I think this, even the movie, I think it's underrated. I think there's a lot going on there about being treated fairly, being treated with justice. I suppose with Vietnam War vets, although I don't know a lot about that, but I thought it's quite powerful. And the book is a lot more gritty and real, and that's what I like about it. I read the book before I saw the movie, and the characters are much more kind of layered and even ambiguous. At times you're not actually always supporting Rambo, you're kind of thinking, it's ambiguous, they're grey characters, but it's just real, and I absolutely love the story. So do yourselves a favour, don't shut off from it completely, try and read something different if you're going to read First Blood by David Morrell. In 91st position, we have Peter Benchley, Jaws, and this is rounding off my round one of my special passion project. Now everyone knows the story of this great white shark who's terrorizing the seaside village. But you probably know it from the movie, but the book is awesome as well. I like the movie and the book. The characters' work is obviously the characters are going to be more realized, the story is a little bit deeper, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. I know a lot of people say that it's very 70s, it's all sorts of thing about the way it focuses on women and all that. Yeah, I take these sort of books from whence they came, and I found this a lot of fun, terrifying fun. I really enjoyed it. And just a note about the movie, I thought you might find it interesting, is that Steven Spielberg actually kind of regretted making that movie, Jaws. And the reason being is that sharks got a bad rep from that movie, a really bad rep. They got vilified as man-eating monsters, and that's not the reality of what they are. Yeah, they will chow down on you if you basically in their territory. And I'm saying this as an ex-surfer. I used to surf all the time. We used to get warnings to get out the water, and we got out the water. But that's for another day. But basically what happened is after the movie, these sharks were massacred. And yeah, that was as a direct result of the movie, the 70s movie Jaws. So yeah, that's just food for thought. And yeah, that's how I'm going to finish off this particular episode 1 of 10. I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, it was fun to make. Like I say, this is going to be a passion project. I'm going to try and do it on days that I don't do my purely horror content and other content. But I had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well. So if you enjoy my content, please give me a thumbs up and like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.